And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, sir. How are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We actually have some football stuff to talk about, which feels really weird. The media day cycle has started, and I know it's a little bit of the same because it's going to be some expansion talk. It's going to be a little bit of OU Texas, but still, these media days kicking off, Blake. It's getting me juiced up.
It's getting me juiced up too. Look, the Big 12 started today. I don't know. Do they end today? Like, is it?
I think it's a couple days. I think it's like the other conferences where it runs for a few days, and I think there's going to be some stuff tomorrow as well.
I do have some trivia for you right off the bat. What University of Houston star won the Heisman now that Houston is in the Big 12?
University of
What University of Houston quarterback? He was on the broadcast today, by the way.
University of Houston quarterback. What year?
Or
what decade roughly? Was he 90s?
Yes, he was 90s.
I'm stumped. Who is it?
Andre Ware.
Wait, he was. Oh my God, I don't know why that didn't. Why that didn't click.
The run and gun offense, baby.
I don't know why that didn't click. Damn it, man! I thought I knew my
C. King, man. Look at C. King. He knew.
You should have just waited.
You should have just waited.
Man, I'm terrible. Okay, well that was a good trivia question.
Okay, you want one more?
Yeah, hit me with one. If you got one more, hit me with one more.
The University of Alabama had a long and storied history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not reading that because I don't like Alabama. What is the oldest program? I already did that one. Hold on. Oh, I got one. What NFL quarterback is cousins with Falcons quarterback Michael Vick?
NFL, like current NFL quarterback?
Yeah, who were two cousins that were starting quarterbacks in the NFL?
He's a current quarterback.
No, not current. Not current.
Or he was.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You're not going to get with this one. This was really tough. It's Aaron Brooks.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have guessed that.
All right. So we do got a lot to talk about. So Big 12 Media Day started today. Look, Brett Yormick made some very big statements. He told Oklahoma and Texas.
A lot of shit tossing.
He did not give a damn.
No. And he's not only is he taking shots at Texas and Oklahoma on the way out, which we're going to get into, he also kind of took some shots at the landscape saying, like, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. He very casually made comments about trying to seek more teams from other conferences.
He did. And you got to kind of love it.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Ed Orgeron's in the news. Now, let me just say this.
Okay.
I've already got my text out to Orgeron. I've already texted him. Okay. I know where this is going to go.
Okay.
It happened last year with UNLV. Now, the difference with UNLV and Orgeron versus Northwestern is if Orgeron's offered the Northwestern head coaching job, he will take it.
Really?
Yeah, because he would probably get paid $6, $7, $8 million a year for a minimum of 3 years. So then the money that he has running out at LSU, he can continue to prolong that. He's running out of money.
Yeah. Yeah, no, his buyout's probably going to close up real quick.
He ain't got too much longer of a buyout. But nothing screams stop hazing more than Ed Orgeron.
Oh, yeah. To get your culture right, Ed Orgeron is the guy that you bring into the locker room. I mean, even from his time at Ole Miss, what he did in his time at as a defensive coach with USC, Miami, and then now obviously LSU, the guy is the culture king. He is get the locker room in shape. He doesn't put up with any shit. I laughed at it.
First off, that was a sarcastic remark from me. He is not the face you need to run out there after you had.
Why? I think he's
Orgeron had a LSU
disciplinarian.
Well, LSU and Orgeron's exit was.
But his exit was.
He was letting blondes with big titties and their kids run out in football drills.
He got lost in the sauce. That's
boom,
not
boom, 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 boom. My milkshake brings other boys to the yard.
Hey,
my guy won a national championship
in his home state, and he got lost in the sauce. I get it. I understand that, but he's a disciplinarian. I think that he'd be the guy to bring in who has been an established coach at multiple programs to get everything in line and clean things up. You don't think so?
We'll see. We'll see. We might talk on that a little bit. But one thing's for note: if it's your first year watching college football, the first couple coaches that are announced, did you see Tommy Rees was also the leading candidate to get the job? How does he continue to fail while progressing?
I don't know. It is one of the most miraculous achievements of any coach in the country that he consistently is brought up for openings that he is not qualified for.
Very true. Very true. All right. And also the AJC's Journal Constitution. Georgia's clapping back. Joe, 3 weeks ago on this platform, I told you, or no, even more than that. We've said this a couple times. The Atlanta Journal Constitution sucks.
Yes.
Like it is not a good place. I don't remember the reporter's name. I think it's Grum. But they didn't Georgia did not issue their letter to the reporter and all of this. They issued it to the Atlanta Journal Constitution. So, look, Joe, I would get it if these kids were out partying, getting arrested, they were fighting. That would be something different, right? These kids are getting tickets for traffic incidents. Like, I mean, at what point do we kind of draw the line like they're so bad of individuals, they're getting traffic tickets? Like that's what we're worried about right now? Them getting traffic tickets? A young kid with a brand new car is driving it fast? Well, did he get arrested? Well, no, he got a ticket. Okay.
It's kind of like one of those things where when somebody is so successful, you're just trying to find a way for them to fail. And it's really strange that your hometown paper media outlet.
It's not. It's
sorry.
National Constitution's where Georgia Tech is. So it's
yes. But one of the biggest media outlets in the state of Georgia, which there's a lot of Georgia fans in Atlanta. There's a lot.
Well, it's the biggest media sports outlet in the Southeast.
Yes.
Not named ESPN, obviously.
For them to take these, actually, I can't even call it shots. It's strange the way that they have handled themselves over the past year. It's really, really strange that they've attacked Georgia the way that they have.
It is, but it's not the craziest thing I've read in the last 24 hours, which, by the way, I texted you this, and if you haven't, I'll try to send the link to you. Joe, there's a Reddit post out there about rumors and college coaches.
Yes.
Dude, last night, I read damn near all of them. So all of these college towns, all of these college kids, all of these college football fans were basically telling every crazy rumor from a head coach of their school. I have 10 of them, but I'll just give you one. Like Todd Grantham apparently was so upset and throwing punches when he was in the Hawaii airport and called Hawaii a third world country because they did not have Diet Dr. Pepper.
Don't get in between a man and his Dr. Pepper, Blake. That's
no. Not Dr. Pepper. Diet Dr. Pepper.
Sorry. Diet Dr. Pepper.
I mean, if the man's willing to throw punches out on a recruiting trip in an airport, then I mean,
passionate.
We probably need to preface this. Probably 99% of this is not true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a Reddit
but maybe
thread.
The 1% is the one with Harbaugh, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
Yeah. I can fully see that one. All right. Let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor, though, by hitting the like and share to all those social media groups, share to all those social media pages. If you're listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, and notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're watching us on Fubo TV, thank you so much for joining us. Go follow us on our socials. So I'm our good friends over at BetOnline. What do you want to do first? Atlanta Journal-Constitution, or you want to go around the Big 12?
Let's go around the Big 12.
All right, let's go around the Big 12. Talk about our friends over at BetOnline. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. And even though Melvin Hills from Lafayette, Louisiana, just committed to the Longhorns as the show was going on, you're still not back.
Nope.
You're still not back. And I think it's a good preface about the we're back, Joe, because we're going to go around the Big 12 Media Days. Listen, there are a couple things that was said by Brett Yormark today, the Big 12 commissioner, that I was like, damn. Okay. He came out today and said that they have a TV rights deal with ESPN until 2031, which means we're not getting the Big 2 conference until 2031. He alluded to that they're not stopping with adding teams. I think that's going to be Oregon. And he took a massive couple shots there. And I've already told you what I thought about Colorado. Buddy, I know that Oklahoma and Texas are leaving and going to the SEC, but I don't think the Big 12 is going anywhere. I really, really don't. You add in a Cincinnati market, you add in a Houston market, and if you could get an Oregon and Colorado, then you really add something. I would assume that Oregon State would follow in that as well. So good on him. But the biggest thing is him taking shots at Oklahoma and Texas. He did not hold any weight. He talked about how they did not run the league and recruiting and saying, well, they don't run the league. I mean, everybody's doing good. And he's not wrong when it comes to Texas, Joe, because TCU, Baylor, and Texas all have the same amount of Big 12 titles in the past couple of years. So he's not wrong there. What did you think of Big 12 Media Days?
So I want to touch on that first as you bring it up. It's really strange, the dynamics of the Big 12, in the sense that the two biggest brands in the conference were not always the ones that were the most consistently successful. And
no, they weren't.
Oklahoma more than Texas lately, but in the past 10 years, it's been a lot of other different teams, and they attract the most attention. They attract the biggest fan bases. That doesn't happen in any other conference. That just doesn't. It would be like if Mississippi State was consistently winning the SEC
West.
Right, which would feel really strange if that was happening. The top teams in the SEC are consistently the ones with the biggest fan bases. The same thing could be said for the ACC with Clemson and Florida State. The same could be said for the Pac-12 with USC, Oregon, those big fan bases. But for whatever reason, there's good parity in the conference. It's not going to hurt them. I don't think it's going to hurt them in terms of having successful teams on the field. Where it does hurt them is the amount of eyeballs that they need on a week-to-week basis to match the Texas and the Oklahoma fan bases. Part of me wonders maybe that's why they want to seek out, and he made a statement. He said that there is strength in numbers and that they might look to fill that 14-member number that they're at right now before the Sooners and Longhorns leave. So maybe they need to just go after more teams to fill that gap.
Well, I do think that there are some eyeballs they can get. If Deion can get Colorado flipped, okay, if Oregon with Dan Lanning can continue to do some things, I think there's teams out there, okay? Like, I don't think that they're hurting. And I understand what you're saying in reference to eyeballs, right? Like, I get it, okay? Eyeballs mean nothing when those teams are getting their teeth kicked in, right? True. So if Oklahoma and Texas come in the SEC and get their teeth kicked in, the Big 12 might not look so bad, right? Like, because in retrospect, well, you were getting your ass kicked in the Big 12 too. I mean, Joe, we're a year away from TCU with a first-year head coach in Sonny Dykes getting to a national championship game before Brent Venables, Lincoln Riley, Tom Herman, and now obviously Steve Sarkisian. Sonny Dykes was the first one to break through. Well, Sonny Dykes and the crew are back. And quite honestly, if this year goes the way that they, I'm listening to the Big Horn Frog media over there, and they're thinking that they're going to win the Big 12. They want retribution. They want to get back to there. Kansas State, okay, Joe. Kansas State is returning over 1,000 snaps, over 1,000 snaps at one position. Oh, no, not 1,000 snaps, over 10,000 snaps at the offensive line. 10,000 snaps along the offensive line.
That's a big deal.
What's going to happen if Texas and Oklahoma, if either one of them can't win the Big 12? We think about them as a big brand. They are massive brands. Being a blue blood and being a good brand don't mean a damn thing when that ball gets kicked off. It doesn't matter. It legitimately doesn't matter. If Texas goes into week 2 and gets their teeth kicked in by Alabama, it's not going to matter. If they can't win the Big 12, it's not going to matter. I think that he's somewhat right here a little bit.
It's the same shit that we do with the Dallas Cowboys every single year.
And
we talk about them.
That they're from Texas.
Yes, exactly. My point is that it's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to be so good this year. Is Dak going to be as good as he possibly can? And the media cycle just churns and churns and churns. And it's the same thing with Oklahoma and with Texas, because that they know that there is an attraction to those brands historically. There are regions where football is a lifestyle. It is not just a sport that is observed like in other parts of the country. But that's kind of what my whole point is, where it's such a weird dynamic, because they could go to the SEC and they could be a very middling team that recruits well, attracts players, but does not cultivate success on the field. And like, what's more valuable, having a program where even if they win 5 games, they still have a high retention in viewership numbers, or good programs that are going to show up and put out competitive, good football teams that aren't going to get their teeth kicked in and upset. Like that's the strange dynamic of it.
That is the strange dynamic of it. And I agree with you, man. I just, like if God willing, Kansas State pulls through, right? Like if they pull through and win the Big 12, if Baylor and Dave Aranda find a way to get back to their competitive ways, okay, it's just going to be such a bad look on Texas and Oklahoma that they can't win their own conference. Now, I do think one of the two are going to do it. I do think that they're going to do that, but I'm not as bullish on Texas as everybody is. I'm really not. Okay. I know they have good athletes. I know that they have a lot of good players. They have a lot of good athletes and a lot of good players a lot of years. The thing that people will forget, we're acting like Steve Sarkisian was left a dumpster fire at Texas. He was not. No. Okay. He was left some really good players and he poo-pooed them. Okay. Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, the dudes that he had on the offensive side, Quinn Ewers, I get it, but you should not be any less than 10 games, winning 10 games. Like, it should not happen in the Big 12. And so I look at Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's a little different. They were absolutely decimated by the portal, right? They can't really control that. But I just have a feeling, what's going to happen, Joe, if we're sitting here in week 7 and Kansas just took down Oklahoma? Because it could happen.
It's possible.
By the way,
Jalen Daniels is a good football player.
Did you see his chain, by the way?
Yes. I tweeted out that obnoxious edit that I did, but I got to be honest, that was a little much. I know that everyone was freaking out over that. That's a little much.
Well, this is what I said. I wanted to change just like that so I could put my shows on it, like recap of my shows. Hey.
Oh my God.
You know what it looked like? Can I tell you what it looked like? I'm not trying to poo-poo on the kid. It looked like he took out the center of a smartwatch.
I was going to say, it looked like an Apple Watch.
It looked like an Apple Watch, didn't it?
I bet that's what it is. I would be willing to bet that's how that was manufactured. The other part of this,
Kansas was 5-1 before he went down?
They were beating up on crappy teams, but I think that they go over 500 again. I think that Jalen
Joe,
Daniels is a great
who were they
football player.
beating? Like game day was there. Who was the team that they were playing when game day was there? They lost.
TCU. They lost to TCU.
It was TCU.
Yeah,
but
that was before the TCU hype. That was before, and then TCU won that game.
TCU was still undefeated. But if you remember in that game, TCU was not leading until Jalen Daniels went down. Remember? Like it was something crazy that happened.
Yeah.
And then they wind up losing after their quarterback goes down. Regardless, and back to the main point here, I don't think that look, I think Texas loses. I think Oklahoma loses. Even if by the grace of God, one of them gets to the playoffs, it'd be great for the SEC if one of those teams did going into next year. It's not going to happen, in my opinion. I think that there are way too many good teams in the Big Ten, way too many good teams in the SEC, way too many good teams even in the Pac-12 right now. Joe, are you taking USC or Texas right now? If you had to take
USC,
okay,
as much
are
as
you
it pains
taking
me.
Oregon or are you taking Texas?
I'm taking Oregon.
We saw what happened with Washington and Texans a year ago. Are you going to take Oregon or Oklahoma? I kind of want to tend to lean Oregon. So the Big 12, quite honestly, they haven't gotten anything from Texas in the last 10 years any damn way. So I get that it's a big marketing and branding that they're like, I am not trying to take away that Texas is a big deal. Oklahoma is a big deal going into the SEC, the two biggest brands in the conference. I get it. However, let's not act like one of those teams in Texas has been worth a damn in football enough in the last 10 years for you to just go out here and say, oh, well, the Big 12's in trouble. Says who? These other teams were out there kicking their ass anyway.
No, yeah, that's my whole point. I really don't think that they're going to be missed, as your Mark is talking about here. They haven't shown up. They've recruited fine. They've brought in some talented players, but none of those guys have developed. I do want to hit on, Blake, the comments that he made about expanding to 14 and getting more teams here. I don't know if we can necessarily pinpoint what the ceiling is for the amount of teams that they go after, but we've talked about this a lot. Like we've talked about this a ton of what direction can they go in if they do expand further. There's so many different teams that are out there. But I actually think that unlike what we thought a couple years ago when the news broke that Texas and Oklahoma were leaving, everyone was freaking out and said, does the Big 12 fall apart? Does it crumble? I think that they're one of the best positioned conferences right now in the country. Not saying that they're ahead of the SEC. I'm not saying they're ahead of the Big 10. I place them ahead of the ACC and the Pac-12 for the direction that they're going in.
I would agree. Now, listen, you got to be careful when a commissioner talks. This is something I learned a long time ago.
Yeah.
You got to be careful when a commissioner talks because you come off this high, you're ready for football to happen. You got to really listen to what he's saying. It's great he's got a TV deal till 2031. ACC's got one until 2036. So remember, because Florida State wanted to leave and they owed, what was it, like 100 and something million, close to 100 million if they left. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I get what you're saying. They do feel like that they are doing things. Now, one thing that I will say that I do think is interesting is that, number one, they haven't laid down and rolled over and shown their belly, right? They haven't rolled over like a dog. They're doing this ESPN Deportes. They're doing this ESPN and Big 12 to Mexico. They're doing a lot. ESPN's doing a lot of things in Mexico and other places with them in basketball. That's why, again, I'll just continue to say it. I don't think you go to a Big 2, but it is good. Look, you have a very large Spanish culture in a lot of these areas, right? And so I think it could bode well. You know, if let me just, like, if UTEP and Baylor went to Mexico City and played a football game like Kansas City and what was it, the Raiders? When it Kansas City Chiefs and the Raiders?
Yes. Yeah,
and that place was sold out.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can sell out a 100,000 seat stadium, well, Joe, I don't think it's that bad of a deal. I think that actually might work for them, and it's a whole nother viewing market. I think the Big 12 is going to be okay. I don't have any faith in Texas that they're leaving, that it's a big deal. Now, that could just be me, but who knows? Have we done the Big 12 recap yet?
We did the preview, and I picked Kansas State, who I think is
And
going
I
to win
picked Oklahoma.
I want to say yes. I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember who I picked either.
You might not have given a pick
in Kansas State.
Yeah.
I don't think I formally picked anybody.
I don't think you did. So who would you pick?
I think if memory serves me correctly, I came out here and said I don't trust any of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because remember, we talked about Cincinnati and Houston. Could Cincinnati and Houston go in there? And I said, hell no. Cincinnati just lost their coach and they got depleted by the portal. Who would I pick? I still like Oklahoma, though, in this, Joe. I mean, I think they got a lot of talent. One team I'm not picking is Iowa State. I will tell you that right now. Here's an
hater.
Well, here's an interesting thought. How does Dave Aranda bounce back? How does the Aranda man bounce back?
I don't know if there really is a path to bouncing back. I feel like the ceiling for Baylor, like they can have these big years, but you need like a premier player to lead things. And like is Blake Shapen the guy that's going to lead them? I think they're going to be a well-coached team, but 9 wins is accomplishable.
Well, if they get to 9 wins, they could win it because they did it a couple years ago. Now, the question would be, is that they did it with LSU. I mean, not LSU. They did it with Matt Rule's players. And so that is a big question mark that he's going to have to answer. Dave Aranda is a really good coach. He's not a good recruiter. He never has been. The only way that he can sustain is if he really starts recruiting at a better level. We will wait and see on that. You know what I did think is a little bit interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of these lot of teams, bro, did you know that Vanderbilt is out recruiting most of 2/3 of the Big 12 right now? Did you get?
Wait, are you talking about like in their current 2024?
Yeah, in the current. So stay with me. Do you know that there's a chance in the next 2 or 3 years that those teams in the Big 12 could easily get beat by Vandy?
I don't know if I put
they're knocking on the door.
In that.
No, they're knocking on the door of a top 25 class. They're knocking on the door of a top 25 class.
But is that actually going to be sustained? Like, is that something that
Clark Lee's there? It might.
They're
recruiting their asses off. I think they're like 33rd right now, and they have a couple of recruits that are about to pop.
They have 2 4-stars. They have 19 3-stars.
I know.
I've always said that with a program like Vanderbilt,
you got to keep those kids like that and develop.
You got to get a shit ton of 3-stars, and you need a couple of them to really develop and shine. But I don't know if, sure they're going to out recruit Kansas and Iowa State.
There's no reason why they should be out recruiting Cincinnati, Baylor, and Houston.
That's true.
There's no reason why they should be out recruiting UCF. There's no.
Wait. They're not out recruiting UCF right now. That's not true. UCF's been one of the hottest teams over the past month with some of the recruits that they've pulled. I think they're higher ranked.
Where's UCF right now?
They're 46, but they have.
So
wait. But they have 12 kids committed compared to
it doesn't matter. That's a part of it.
No, but a lot of the times though, these rankings, I don't put a lot of stock in because there's a reason why I don't put a lot of stock into the July rankings because my dumbass was hyped up about Notre Dame last year and we were number 1 and look where we finished.
That's a little different.
I think it's the same. Academic schools getting kids committed and then someone comes in and offers them money and then they decommit.
You're talking about a top 10 class. We're talking about like generalities of recruiting.
But I think there's a good chance that a lot of those, not a lot of them, some of those kids are going to get plucked. Like some of those kids
almost got a kid in Kamari and Pimpton that might be the next Kyle Pitts. Kid went to LSU. Like legitimately 36 on the ACT. Dude was like a mega star book dude. Okay. He's 6'6", 240. Just throwing that out there.
I will say this, though, before we do turn the page. I do think that UCF can do some damage. I feel like that hasn't been talked about a lot, and I don't know if it'll get brought up tomorrow. But, man, they are regionally in such a good spot. I know I shat on them talking about their –
The problem, though, Joe, is there's so many teams in Florida.
They've had more success in the past decade than most of these teams have.
Georgia's going in there and plucking dudes. Alabama's going in there and plucking dudes. LSU's going in there and plucking dudes.
Good point.
When a team let me just say this from a recruiting aspect. When teams are transferring conferences, which, you know what, I just had a thought. How can teams transfer conferences, but people and coaches are mad when players are transferring?
It's a good point. It's a really good existential point, but at the same time, it takes a couple of years. You can't just immediately do it.
Well, I'm just saying, you went out and got 2 schools, and people get mad that Eli Ricks went to Bama, which I get from an LSU standpoint, but I mean, just interesting.
It all wraps into the anti-transfer portal conversation.
Correct. But you know what's interesting? If UCF starts doing things, that means they got to take recruits from somebody else.
There's a lot of kids in Florida. I think they could
not high quality ones.
You don't think there's a lot of good recruits?
Their fair share, Florida, dude. I got to give Billy this, man. I told you this. How many times have I told you this? I got the text message. Billy out there recruiting. Billy might get his ass whipped on the field, but my man's out there recruiting. Okay? Look, if they give him enough time, he's going to have guys. He's going to have dudes. Just got to give him enough time. All right. You want to get to this Atlanta, speaking of, SCEs, you want to get this Atlanta Journal-Constitution bit?
Yeah.
Do you want to give everybody, if they have not seen it, kind of a rundown of what happened here? I mean, don't give the gory specific details.
Yes.
They can read it for themselves. But just so tell everybody what's going on.
So the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, one of the bigger publications in the Southeast, has been very negatively covering Georgia athletics and more specifically their off-the-field antics. There's been a lot of guys that have been getting in trouble with speeding and other dumb things that kids get in trouble with, and it gets reported on because this is a 2-time national championship winning team in the past 2 years. But recently there was a very scathing article that was written by one of their reporters, and it was alleging and talking about how there were 11 players who were recently accused of violence towards women and other very serious crimes. There has been significant blowback from the Georgia football program, its players, current and former, and they have released a statement that they are demanding a retraction of the information that was put out there by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And what was stated in, the quote from the article that I read, that it contains reckless disregard for the truth and its imposition of a damaging narrative unsupported by the facts. So they are threatening and claiming that it's defamation.
That statement right there, that comes from Kirby.
Yes.
That's not the AD doing that. That's Kirby doing that right there. Hey, bro, basically, all right. Thank you for giving us that recap. What's your opinion on that, though, before I say my piece? What do you think about that?
I know that there's 2 sides to every single situation, and it's can be juxtaposed with what happened with the Pat Fitzgerald thing, where there are some people going out there saying, like, oh, the media improperly represented the situation without getting all the facts. There was a lot of mounting evidence that was out there and enough proof that that was the right decision. Instead, we're sitting here and we're talking about an article that sits behind a paywall that I can't even read, that is making very, very damaging statements about young individuals that are in their early 20s. Pat Fitzgerald has been around for a long time, and I don't mean to tie these 2 things together, but there are damaging accusations without stating the names of the players, accusing the program of doing really just terrible things. And that to me is just reckless, terrible journalism. They've done this the whole freaking offseason. They have made inappropriate accusations against this Georgia program. And it's fucked up. It's so unbelievably fucked up. It's ridiculous. This stuff.
Say that on Fubo TV.
You got a couple. I mean, Coach JB's on Fubo. Let's be honest.
Oh, well, we spoke every other word.
He has to get bleeped a couple times.
By the way,
yes.
By the way, I've never seen a worse take by a human being than somebody saying that Patrick Mahomes is overrated.
He says it as every show. Every show he gets a shot.
That is the worst. And I'm talking about outright worst comments ever. He's saying it because, Joe, he's not making the right reads. He's not wrong. He doesn't make the right reads.
It doesn't matter. He makes the play regardless.
Okay.
But this is the whole point. It pisses me off when there is a clear bias by the writer that is making these statements. And part of what was talked about in the article that I read was that they were refusing, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution was refusing to cooperate and give and say, these are the people that we know have done, said actions. Mm-hmm. They refused. There was a refusal of cooperation, which to me is telling of them being biased.
All right. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution is the worst publication in the Southeast. It's not close. It's not Outkick. It's not USA Today. It's not any of them. It's not, it is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Now, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, though, is big boy reporting, right? Like it's big boy stuff. Like when you go there as a writer, you're a writer's writer. Now, they tend to be a little bit more politically left-leaning, okay? And I'm not going to tie the politics into this, okay? But they're in Atlanta with a lot of Republicans and Democrats, okay, that the mainstay university is Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. So I'm not saying that there's a bias here, and I'm not saying that there's actually bad reporting. Joe, if a kid got pulled over, a kid got pulled over. There is a police report out there, allegedly, per him, okay? And somewhat, here's the thing that kind of confirmed it, though, for me, that something did go down. In that letter you just read, it said the following words. Those actions were grossly, what was the word they used?
Misrepresented.
Misrepresented. Why didn't you just say they were false? Why didn't you just come out and say that your story is false instead of grossly misrepresented? There could have been other ways that they would have said that those actions, like so far allegedly, okay, allegedly. Let's just say that they would have said that Georgia would have said this has been proven to be untrue and the players have been cleared at this time. Well, Georgia would have come out and said, hey, that ish didn't happen. They didn't say that, though. So even though to the naked eye, to the public who does not have a law degree or hasn't been in law like daddy, okay?
Yes.
That statement to me says, hey, dog, we about to get this shit swept under the rug. It did not happen the way you said it happened, but we're admitting to you that it did happen. Those are the politics behind that article and behind the letter to Georgia that I get. Now, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reporting, why do you have to continue to talk about every single player that's getting pulled over and gets a traffic ticket? What?
Right.
Why are you reporting on every single player that gets a traffic ticket? Well, the argument that they're using is because Jalen Carter and the racing and someone died. That has nothing to do with what is Kirby telling his players? What does he think Kirby's telling his players? Hey guys, go out there and get speeding tickets. Go out there and drag race. What do you think he's saying? Joe, I will tell you, in just the small area that I live in, me personally, now it's a bigger area, okay, and I get that. The sheriff's office makes 2.5 million calls for service a year. What do you think Athens PD does? So I just want to let it be known there are a lot of people out there getting arrested because a town like Athens makes money off of traffic tickets. Just how most big cities run. That's how they make a lot of their money, barring, Atlanta, that doesn't really matter. They don't pull people over because they don't have the time. I'm just letting you know there is something going on here. Something happened. And I started thinking about this. Do you remember when Dan Lanning was going to be the head coach and they were in the playoffs in that first year?
Yes.
And do you remember how that went down, like the moves of it?
Vaguely.
Remember the Atlanta Journal? So this same guy, okay, broke the news on the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that Dan Lanning was going to Oregon. Well, it would have appeared, and Georgia did come out and say this, that that article was false. 30 minutes later, Pete Thamel comes out and says Dan Lanning's heading to Oregon. So we've seen Georgia tell the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that they're wrong before, and it got slapped back in their face. All I'm saying is that I think that hear me out. I think this is a retaliation by this reporter to Kirby Smart in Georgia, and I think he did fabricate some things in that letter, and that's behind a paywall. I also believe, though, that everybody involved knows that something went on. Now, I know that that's a lot to unpack, but I don't think that the guy is out there lying completely. Because, for example, and last thing, remember the Kayshon Boutte rumor that we talked about a lot on the show?
Yes.
He was having sex with a
Yes.
Joe, it happened. Allegedly.
Yes.
Nobody could prove it.
Yes. That's my whole point, though. The thing that you brought up there at the end is, and I actually didn't know about that part. There is clearly some type of a grudge between the reporter and the university.
I think that it stems from when Dan Lanning got hired at Oregon, and they came out and said that ain't true, and the guy came back and clapped back and said, yeah, it is. And then Pete Thamel's got to be peacemaker, okay, and say, hey, guys, I'm just going to end it all here, okay? Let's not fight. He's going to Oregon. And then all of a sudden, everything going on with Georgia coaching-wise, it's going through Pete Thamel. It used to go through Ross Dellinger. So into our business, the media business, well, why is Pete Thamel up at Georgia every goddamn time he can get?
He plays ball. But that's my whole point, is that this is so unprofessional. It's like he's trying to play gotcha with every damn thing that is associated and brought up with the Georgia program. And what you talked about earlier, how one of the statements in there is that there was a misrepresentation of the police reports that were involved with everything that's come up this offseason. Yes, it is Georgia saying it's not false. We're admitting that something did happen, but there's still the negative side of this where he is misconstruing everything that went down. He is manipulating the words to make it seem like it is worse than it actually is. And the thing that does get tough, and you brought up the Kayshon Boutte stuff, like we can't know for absolute certain because a lot of this stuff is alleged. And I think that is where I still stand on the side of Georgia, is that unless there have been actual charges pressed, unless there has actually been, some of these guys have been processed and there have been actual charges filed, how can you sit here and try to produce an article that illustrates some level of institutional lack of control? How can you do that?
He
Because it's
does
all
not
alleged.
have he does not have a lack of institutional control. I mean,
Right.
he doesn't. I mean, guys, they just went out there and won an Natty. You know who's got a lack of institutional control? Northwestern.
That's a lack of control.
That's a lack of institutional control right there. That's what it looks like. Joe, I'm not worried about an 18-year-old kid who through NIL got a brand new car because everybody's winning natties and everybody's floating in cash, and he's got a Hellcat, and the kid has the shift gears on the dash, and he's just, he's speeding, and they're like, oh, he went 85 in a 62 or 65. Okay, well, sounds good. I really don't give a shit, but I do admit that you got to take it for what it's actually saying. Because if he's telling Joe, I believe him that there's a police report. Like, I believe that there was a police report. But you got to calm down. And I do think, in closing on this, I do think Georgia's going to win here. Because there's too much positivity going around Kirby Smart in Georgia. Them boosters going to find a way to get this to be shut up.
Well, the other thing too here is that the worst thing you can do is accuse a media outlet of defamation. It's the worst. They didn't press charges, but to accuse is one of the most terrible things that you can do to a journalist, because there's no recovering from it. He needs to retract any statement that he had, unless he wants to come forward with the proof that apparently was not fully available, that was halfly put into the article that he produced. Right. Look, all I'm saying, and like you're talking about, this stuff happens at every program. It's just getting overly reported on by one guy at the biggest program in the country right now. Kids get pulled over on football teams for speeding. They get arrested for DUIs, and it does not make national news. It happens on every single team.
Well, and it happens to every single person in every single place every single day. Joe, I had a roommate. I've told this story on this platform before. He was black. I was in the front seat with him. He didn't do nothing. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but he was driving while black, but that was what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, love the dude. Lived with him for God knows how long. Okay. Have been with him. I mean, because Joe, I mean, when you live with a roommate, when you live with somebody that's your teammate, you're seeing them all the live long day. You argue about dishes. You argue about bills if you live off campus. Like, you really become more than friends at that point. The guys that I made, and people don't get that, like people that have never really lived with a roommate before, they don't get that. Joe, I live with 5 dudes in one apartment complex. 5. We had 3 dudes that lived upstairs, actually 4 dudes that lived upstairs, because we had bunk beds, okay? And we had one of the guys that lived downstairs. The apartment complex was St. Tropez and Hammond. 5 dudes in there, bro. Actually 6. Just saying.
Nuts.
It's nuts. But it was a massive. The apartment was kind of almost like my house now. It was a massive apartment. Yeah, it was like 27. No, probably like 2,000 square foot. That's a massive apartment for a bunch of dudes.
That's too many football players in one house,
dude. I could tell.
I know y'all got into some shit.
Dude, and we were walking distance from the bars.
Oh my God.
Dude. I could talk about, and so listen to this. This is the spookiest shit of all time. We lived across the street from a cemetery. Okay. And everybody lived around us. I mean, Southeastern's got like 15, 16, 17,000 students, whatever it is. Everybody walked downtown to the bar. Okay. Man, I've seen dudes get kicked in the head like Conor McGregor was doing it. I've seen girls like being put in trash cans by other girls. The walk is what we called it. The walk. And whatever you go down in the walk, shit goes down there, man. Just letting you know.
That's fantastic. We didn't have that at Rhode Island.
Well, and everything stopped because 3 kids got killed. Drunk driver was driving down a road that everybody knows that you're not supposed to drive down at night because of the college students, and he hit 3 people.
Terrible.
God bless it. All right. So very quickly, we got to get to this last. Are you ready?
Yes.
So yesterday, the great website known as Reddit somebody posted in there, what is the best rumors you've heard of your head coach at your school ever? And Joe, I stayed on that damn thing for over 2 hours reading every
Stop.
single. I could not get enough. I felt like I was watching a movie. I got a list of 10 here, but I kind of want to go back and forth some that you liked. But allegedly, former Kansas head coach Mark Mangino couldn't wipe his own arse. So he used to have to use bath towels and would leave them around the locker room. So assistant coaches had to pick them up and throw them away.
That's so specific. Like,
it's so detailed.
I would believe it, but I don't think that's true. Because that's just like a big fat slob.
The dude in the article, the rumor, he said that he would go back and forth like he was flossing his asshole.
Yeah, that come on, that's not. There's no way that's true. By the way, random side note that I want to throw in there. Some people don't realize.
Could you imagine Mangino just in there flossing his?
This is why I don't think it's true. See, that's why I don't think it's true.
I know. Go ahead. What did you say?
All I was gonna say though is that some people don't know this, but I don't know if it's for big programs, it's mostly for FCS programs, but when you travel on the road, the locker rooms that they put you in are so small. And sometimes it happens at these big, you have to then shower with your coaching staff, which I have to say might have been one of the weirdest experiences having to do that. Because it's like you can do it with your teammates, but then when you're on like your head coach is right next to you, your O-line coach is next to you, it's like this is weird. Like this is not.
See, I never understood that. I never understood why coaches would shower in the locker room with the players.
After a game, I kind of get it.
Dog, you can go back to your part. Like, you don't have to really shower, bro. Like, I get what you're saying, but you can change some clothes. You ain't got to come up in there. Like, I'll never
the guys, man.
Yeah.
Guys,
right, you want a couple more of these before we
get out? Yeah. So mine that I really liked was the story that was brought up. And then there's a really in-depth story. And I pulled the excerpt, but there's a long story in full detail that Jim Harbaugh was out with his brother, John Harbaugh, out at a bar. And he had gone outside with a couple of girls. And instead of just throwing the ball around like a normal, adult male and being fun and playful, he was such a tryhard and was full speed ripping the ball at these girls, was trying to coach them up on how to properly catch it. The excerpt that is described is that none of them could catch the ball and he was just throwing it as hard as he could. That to me epitomizes Jim Harbaugh. I did get to meet him once, and he does give off this type of energy where he's just such a hard ass. I just got such a kick out of that.
Do you believe it's true?
That one I can get behind. That one is really specific. That one I totally can get behind.
Yes, son. Ben wants to know if he can tell everybody bye before the show. Do you allow this?
Yeah, I allow it. It's up to you.
All right, you've been banging on the door for 5 minutes, dude. What happened? Who is that? What happened? Come here. Tell everybody what happened. Why are you crying? What? Well, you got to go poo-poo on the potty, buddy.
What?
Well, you gotta go. You gotta go let mommy do it. Daddy's on the show. Go. Okay. This did not go the way that I expected it was going to.
We can end the show early.
Okay. Tell everybody bye, dude. All right. We'll see y'all Saturday.
Saturday, we'll be back.
All right. Somebody's got to go poo.
Oh, man. All right. Hell of a way to the show.
Great. We'll see y'all tomorrow or see y'all Saturday, knuckleheads. Peace.
Peace.